Hey gorgeous, welcome to Happy Go Fabulous. I am so thrilled that you're here. This is our space where we get real about life, the good, the messy and all the juicy bits in between. Real talk, real life and a whole lot of delicious living. But I must warn you, listening may cause unexpected outbreaks of fabulousness and real life magic. Hi, I'm Catherine and I am so incredibly passionate about helping inspired, motivated, impact-driven, freedom-seeking people just like you to do the deep inner work to create those beautiful outer wonders in life. It's all about revolutionising your relationship with yourself, where you fall madly, deeply in love with who you are and create a life so fabulous you can't wait to jump out of bed every morning to live it. Ready? Because ordinary living is so last season. Life's waiting and it's time to make it fabulous. Let's shimmy on in. Hi gorgeous, welcome to this week's episode of Happy Go Fabulous, where we explore all of life, all of life. And I've been sharing in the first couple of episodes, been just sort of sharing about where I'm at with life and just the focus of this podcast. And today I'm going to talk about, I'm not sure how long this will take, because this could be a really, really long topic or a super, super quick one. But the art of surrender, the art of surrendering, this is something that's been, I think it's part of my life lesson. You know how we have lessons in life that, and when we learn those lessons, then we get presented with different ones. I reckon surrendering has been a big, big lesson for me. And I'm not sure if I've got the answer, but I've got some tips around it. So if anybody there is sort of thinking about, we hear that term surrender and trust a lot. If you're like me, you might have got it really quickly. You might be, your lessons in life, you might get them quicker than I get mine. But surrendering has been one that's just how do I surrender? How do I do surrendering? And I haven't, it was also parallel, I think, to forgiveness. It's some things that were happening in life. It's just how do I do forgiveness? And it's it's not a doing thing, it's a being thing. So anyway, I'm going to share and do my very best to see if I can kind of explain this concept to you. And it's probably more for my own benefit than yours. When they say, if you can't do, teach. No, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that thing at all. But anyway, so for me, surrendering is about releasing control. It's about, and it's who else likes to have control over things? And my husband says that, he says, you don't like control, but you like things done a certain way and you like to know what's happening. And it's just yes, absolutely. And I do things so I feel that I'm in control. But what I've been experiencing in life is that I'm not. I'm not. So let the struggle go, I guess. And for me, this came where I was really, really exploring this concept of surrendering was a couple of years ago when I was studying spiritual psychology. And it was coming on the back of a very, very challenging experience when my dad was not well and he needed to go into care. And then he was diagnosed with dementia and then passed away. And this was all during COVID, and it was just a rocky, rocky, rocky time. And I, part of the experience, Dad was an awesome dad, really loving dad, but the last few years were really very challenging. And it's how do I release, some of the emotions that I'm feeling towards him, but how do I let go and surrender to what's happening? So when I went into spiritual psychology, that was one of my goals. They're saying, what are your goals for this 2-year program? And I said, I'd like to learn how to surrender. They're like, oh, okay, interesting. And anyway, I feel that I was able to do that. So for me, surrendering is around releasing control over trying to make life happen a certain way. And it's also releasing or letting go of expectation that it should be a certain way. There's a pause happening because I have found that challenging. That has been a challenging lesson. So letting go, releasing the need to control and have life be a certain way, and letting go of attachment to any specific outcome that it's going to be a specific way. So it's about trusting in life, because control is an illusion. I felt that I've had plans for life, and some of those I can still manifest and create things, but life has a flow of its own and a rhythm of its own. And I can be as, here I am squeezing my knuckles for those that you can see me doing that control and wanting things to happen a certain way, that there's a rigidity to that. There's a discomfort to that. And when you let go, there is a fluidity and an ease of it. So for me, the learning to surrender, I feel that there is much more ease and flow to my life. And I remember an image that came to me when I was learning to surrender, and it was of a hose. And I don't know if anybody else does this, but when the hose is flowing, that when you bend the hose, you can stop the flow there and you stop the water flowing. But when you let go and let the hose just to flow naturally, to release it, it just flows naturally. And I don't know if you've got these sprinkler heads on your hose, but when you twist it one way, there is a very specific flow, a very tight flow that comes out. And I had this image that life could be like that very specific flow, and it can be a bit harsh, and you can aim it at certain things, and like a certain plant in the garden, and you can direct it straight there, but it just hits that plant if you aim correctly. Sometimes if you don't, it doesn't hit it. But when you put it onto the sprinkler mode, it is much gentler, and it can flow, and it can flow over to that plant, but also to the others that are around it, not just this really harsh, directed flow. And I don't know if that makes sense, but for me, that's how surrender felt. That it was not trying to direct and control, and that force that goes with the, aiming at a particular plant to water it. It's about much more softness, much more grace, and actually allowing the flow to go where it is needed. I don't know if that makes sense. That might not make sense. And for me, surrendering, when this year, when things have some unexpected events happened, when my niece suddenly passed away, when we were moving here to our new home, and I said to a friend just recently when I was talking about this, I said I had no choice but to surrender. And she said, Catherine, be really careful with your words, because you did have a choice. You could have just given up. You could have just gone, fuck it. It's all too hard. You could have just ignored what was happening. You could have, bottled everything up. You could have imploded. You could have exploded. You could have done like all these things. She said, you chose to surrender. So you did have a choice. So I guess just a little aside note, be really mindful of the language that you use, because when we say I didn't have a choice, we did. We do have a choice. And I have, consciously, I'm not sure I went, I consciously choose to surrender. I felt that was the choice that I had to make, that it was about letting go and trying to force anything, and being really, really present in the moment, and allowing life to unfold and responding to life. I did not like a lot of what was happening, and I still do not, but it was about responding to that. So for me, it wasn't about giving up. It was about releasing control and expecting life to be a certain way, because life was delivering something that I was not expecting and I had absolutely no control over. I had control over how I responded. So control is kind of a little bit of an illusion, really. And so many of us, myself, I'll put my hand up, have tried to control things. So it's really about that relationship of trust and surrender. And so I guess it's about, some of the resistance points are about worrying what might happen. And it's not what we want to have happen. It's happening anyway. So, let's spend less energy worrying. Is about trusting that this is for the higher good. I still don't make sense of a lot of things. I don't have the answer for that. So please don't ask me. Please don't say, well, why did certain things happen? I don't know. It's about trusting my responses to things and trusting the other people's responses, but not trying to make anything happen. And I think if you listen to one of my last episodes, I'm just trying to recall what I said, manifesting, when I was talking about the manifesting process. I'm not trying to make anything happen. I have set some intentions and some pretty clear intentions, and I follow a process where I would love things to happen. And as it turns out, things have happened that way. But I have let go of control that they have to be a certain way, if that makes sense. And I guess one of the things for me in surrendering, I feel much more peaceful in uncertainty. Do you know what? I have a funny relationship with uncertainty. Part of me really is okay with it and very comfortable with it. There's another part of me that goes, man, I like to know. I like to know what we're having for dinner tonight. Don't surprise me. I like to know kind of what we're doing on the weekend. But I also create space that I don't need to know. It's a funny dichotomy that I have with uncertainty. I do feel my energy feels much more flowy, like the hose flowy, softer and gentler. I think that's, if there's something, can you feel that? If anybody's got comments, add some comments to the podcast. I know that this isn't interactive real time, but you can add some comments. What's your feeling with surrender versus control? Mine feels more flowy, easeful, graceful, less stress. To me, control feels pointy and tight. I know they're not technical. Well, maybe they are. Control feels pointy and tight. Surrender feels flowy and loose and light. And it feels gentle. Surrendering feels gentle, if that makes sense. A greater sense of peace. And even though I think initially probably feel a little bit more stressed that I don't know the outcome, ultimately I feel much less stressed and more energy. And sort of I don't have that resistant energy. Even in my body feels lighter and flowier. And I'm really thinking, my intuition is just on fire at the moment. Like, it's really opened up. And is that because I am in a space of not trying to control things? Probably. I'm in a beautiful part of the world where the energy just feels great. I still, surrendering doesn't mean giving up and just like don't have a care in the world, because I do. I still do have a care in the world, and I still do function, and I still need to be able to live and do stuff. But I'm not thinking that there has to be a specific outcome for it. So for me, there's a difference between giving up and letting go, or releasing control. Giving up kind of has that sense of defeat. It's just like, oh, it's all too hard. I can't do anything. Whereas surrendering is I'm just allowing and I'm not fighting what's happening. And for me, a giving up feeling is quite a heavy feeling where the releasing feels quite liberating, if that makes sense. And it allows more stuff to flow in. So really the surrender is about releasing that control of attachment to what's happening. I think that's where sometimes people get really disappointed in life, is that they have attachment that things should be a certain way. I don't have attachment to things that should be a certain way. I am really grateful for things that they are, but if they don't work out how I want them to, there's stuff, last year I was, launching my website. I had these programs that I was ready to create and launch, and they didn't happen. And that's okay, because they weren't meant to at that stage. There's one project that it's taken me a while to release the attachment from. For those of you who remember when John and I went to Cambodia, and I was looking at doing, going to do some retreats in Cambodia. Not retreats, they were programs. And it was about living in the village and helping contribute to a local school and village, and doing some of my coaching, but doing it in a space that was in a third world country. And so it certainly wasn't a retreat, but it was a self-development program. And we had everything planned, and we were sort of ready to do that launching of it, and it just did not feel right. There were some things that were eventuating in relation to some very political stuff within the village and the region that we were going to do these in, and it started getting the energy around it became very, very obstructionary. And John and I just went, you know what, this is not what we had set out for it to be. So we went, let's not do this. And I felt this real sense of failure, that I wasn't able to bring to life this beautiful dream that I had. And I had this real sense of failure because I had attachment to what it was going to be, and because it was ending up not being that. Yeah, it took me quite a while to get over that. But I think whenever I was starting to advertise it, COVID was just around the corner. And had I gone ahead and done that program, we probably would have been trapped in Cambodia during COVID, and that would have been not okay. So by releasing the attachment, it did take me, quite some time to come to terms with that. To me, that was surrendering. That was surrendering to what was happening and releasing. It wasn't giving up. It was making a conscious decision that what I had planned was not going to come to fruition. So I'm not sure if this is making sense. Please let me know if this is making sense. So it's about not giving up at all. It actually felt, and you know what? When we made that decision, it felt like after the initial, oh my God, what a failure. And we've invested quite a bit of money in doing some pre-planning and research and stuff like that. But it actually felt quite liberating when we made that decision to go that this is not the right time for this. Now, will it happen again? I'm not sure. And I'm not putting too much energy into that. I'm trusting that if something like that needs to happen, it will come with different energy around it. So it's about releasing that attachment. And it can feel like loss. When we letting go or letting things flow, it can feel like a sense of loss. And that's what that felt like for me. That it felt like, so just observing that feeling that you have as well. It letting go can also often can require a conscious effort to let it go, but letting things flow can actually be natural and effortless. So was I letting things go? I think I was letting things go with the Cambodia project because it was a conscious effort. Now, when I am surrendering, it is a much natural and effortless process that's in the moment, if that makes sense. God, I keep saying that a lot. I'm not sure. I was thinking this was, and it's very much about trusting divine timing on things. and it's about allowing, not forcing. It's allowing things to happen, not forcing them to happen. That's probably the key difference for me. That, forcing is about pushing and that resistance. It's about tension and stress. It's about, when I said the manifesting, making things happen. To me, that's a forcing process. And even when I've got that free little resource, and feel free if you want to download it now, the one that I've called Stop Chasing, Start Attracting, that to me, chasing is a forcing action. Making things happen is a forcing action, whereas attracting is allowing things to happen and to come to you. So forcing to me is also that busy code and that burnout code and that hustle and grind code, that you're just on this constant treadmill of just work, whereas the surrendering and allowing has a much gentler energy to it, even though it can feel very energizing. It's a very freeing feeling. And you've heard people probably say, slow down to speed up. That's how I feel the surrendering is. When you slow down, release that heavy grip of hustle and grind culture, that you allow space for more creativity, you allow space for more spontaneity, you allow a space for much more free-flowing energy, and probably attracting the people that really need to be attracted to you and that you're wanting to attract to you. And it feels much more flexible. So some of the things, I guess, even when I think about it in practical examples, so that might sound a little bit wishy-washy at the moment, but practical examples, when I've worked with people in that career space, when I see them forcing versus surrendering and controlling is, say that they're wanting a promotion and they'll go for a promotion regardless of timing. They will just go, yep, I'm going to go for the next role because I'm ready for it. And that, that in itself, not wrong, but it's almost like they're doing it at regardless of the timing and the opportunities, whereas surrendering and allowing is being ready while waiting for the right opportunities to come along and being much more open and receptive. So you're not driving the process, you're actually being observing and being open and receptive to what's available. In relationships, I see a lot of people trying to force others to like them and to make them commit. And it's almost like that energy that comes, whereas allowing is just being your best, most beautiful self, and the right people show up to you, and trusting that. Not forcing yourself upon people, but trusting that the right people will show up. Goals, I think I've kind of talked about that, but having rigid adherence to a timeline, regardless of the circumstances. I see so many people, and I've worked with so many clients who will stick to a goal just because they've set themselves a goal. And often they will say to me is, I need to do it because otherwise I'm a failure. What will people think? And that's what I thought with our Cambodia program. I'm a failure because I haven't been able to bring this to fruition. I think I would have been a failure had I gone ahead. Actually, I don't think I would have been a failure. I don't believe in failure. But I see a lot of people hanging on to dreams that are no longer relevant or appropriate. Circumstances have changed, but because they've set themselves that goal, it's just like, well, I'm going to do it just regardless. Whereas the allowing is staying committed, but still being flexible and reviewing where you are at on your path, and being completely okay to say, well, I choose not to continue down that path. I choose to go down this path instead. And then I guess in daily life, the forcing is just insisting that everything goes to plan. Look, I like a plan. I like things to kind of go to plan, but I don't insist on it. I don't force that plan. I think I am much more, my surrendering model is I have intentions and I am very open to adjustments. That's the energy. If I was to sum this up, it's about having intentions, but being open to adjustments on the way and allowing adjustments and trusting that the universe is working with me, not against me. And really the sweet spot for me is taking action, having those intentions, still manifesting and taking that, inspired action, but remaining unattached to what the exact result's going to be. That's where the real shift for me has happened. I could not, I had intentions for last year. Some of them have come off. A lot of them are very, very different to what I expected. And I'm completely okay with that. And I even moving into 2025, it's different to what I was thinking it would have been, a year or so ago. And I'm completely okay with that. I trust that it's unfolding how it needs to unfold, even though there's uncertainty around it. So trusting the timing. I'm clear on what I want, but I'm flexible in how that comes to me. And that's the art of surrendering. I think there's books written on it. And like I said to you, this could have been a really, really long topic. I would be so interested if you comment where you are listening to this podcast. I would love you to do that. Please don't be a passive listener. I would love you to pop your little fingers and write your comments. There is no right or wrong around this. I would love genuinely to hear from you what your thoughts on surrendering are, because to me it has been a really powerful concept, but probably hard to articulate, if that makes sense. Although I quite often say that when I'm coaching with people, I will be chatting about something. I'm going, oh, I'm so sorry that sounded so garbly. And they're going, oh my gosh, that made complete sense. So I'm not sure if this is one of those moments that in my head it's like, just like, oh my God, that sounds so garbled. And it makes sense to you. It'll make sense to the people that need to hear it and have it made sense to. So anyway, I'm going to leave that one there. I'm not going to keep going on about it. Art of surrendering. Please let me know your comments, your thoughts, even email me. I'd love it if you could pop it and we can continue the conversation on where you're listening to the podcast. But if that's not possible, pop me through a DM on my socials, the Happiness Hive socials, or my email, Catherine@happiness-hive.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to stay in the loop with what's happening in Happiness Hive and some of the programs that are going to be coming soon, make sure you've joined up to my newsletter, the Happiness Hive newsletter. I send it out weekly and there's different tips and views on life. I would love it. The link's in the show notes that you can sign up or pop across to the Happiness Hive website and you'll scroll to the bottom of the page. So anyway, love to you and have fun surrendering. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Happy Go Fabulous. I hope you loved it. If you did, could I ask a big favour? Please subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, share the love and let your besties know about the podcast. This will help get it into the hearts and ears of all the gorgeous souls who need a little bit of fabulous in their life. If you'd like some more high vibe happiness in your life, come and visit me on my Happiness Hive socials and make sure you've signed up to my newsletter, your weekly drop of juicy goodness. Pop over to my Happiness Hive website and click on the link Working with Catherine. I'd love to help you make life amazing. Until next time, keep being fabulous.